Good morning to one and all present here. I, Dr. Mihir Dev Jhala, Principal JG College of Physiotherapy, welcomes you all, and I heartily welcome Dr. Sabrina Mavi Madam for sparing time for us and attending and presenting as a speaker at our college at an online platform. Uh, I'll introduce Madam. Dr. Sabrina is a registered physiotherapist in Perth, Western Australia, and she is involved clinically and also academically with the students who are coming from overseas to Australia. Uh, I thank Dr. Sabrina ma'am once again, and Madam, we shall start with the lecture now.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So thank you very much, Dr. May, for giving me this opportunity to present this topic. And thank you everybody else for joining me for my topic presentation today. As my topic itself suggests that and explains that it's all about geriatric rehabilitation, which involves elderly. And I'm pretty sure that we do not touch that topic too much in India, as I also spoke about this to Dr. Mihir previously. And I think everybody is more interested in knowing what exactly it is and how do we work in Australia as well. If any one of you is really much looking forward to come and work in Australia, I think it's a good platform for everybody to actually listen to this lecture so that they have a general idea as to what other opportunities are there for them to be able to work as a physio if they're wanting to come and register themselves in the future. But yeah, as I said, that geriatric rehab is a very big branch here in Australia. We do not find all this in India. So it's going to be a bit different for yourselves to understand the concept around it. But I will make it I will try my best to make it very easy for you guys to really understand the concept behind it. So let's start with the first introduction on my behalf of what I do and what I am. So I have completed my bachelor's from Sardar Bhagwan Singh Postgraduate Institute in Dehradun. And after that, I did work in a government hospital. I'm basically from Chandigarh. And after that, I completed my master's at Nanavati Hospital with Dr. Ali Rani, and I'm pretty sure everybody would be knowing him. I have done a bit of work at Nanavati as well, and I've also worked at Holy Spirit Hospital in Mumbai. So I have spent my 5 to 6 years in Mumbai with Dr. Ali Rani. And then I came down to Australia. I got married here, and I gave my license exams to qualify as an Australian physiotherapist, and I'm registered now. And when I came in here to Australia, I found that, there was no help given to me in terms of how to go about the process. It was very difficult. So I made out my mind. I did my exam, and I became a mentor for everybody who is wanting to give exams. So I have been helping them out. I have been giving them all the tips and tricks to pass the exam, to be able to get themselves registered. And then they can actually apply for their permanent residency under skilled visas. So that's a little bit of a picture and a background about myself. So let's start with the topic geriatric rehabilitation. So obviously, as I said previously, that the branch of medicine, and it is a branch of medicine which, where you study the rehab part and the physical therapy part in the elderlies. And to become a physiotherapist in this field, you really need to have good communication skills. You really need to have that humor. You need to have that cooperation and patience, because obviously with elderly, we always need a lot of patience. Yeah. So that goes without saying. So we really, really look forward to those physios who have got something different in them, so that they can associate with the elderlies, because we don't work so much with elderlies in India unless we have to see somebody every day in a hospital. So I suppose this just gives us an opportunity, and gives me an opportunity to have a good rapport with all the elderlies I work around. So it's a bit of a different field as compared to what we see in India. So geriatric services basically are mostly into looking at the holistic picture of the elderly people. So basically, I will just give you a short, brief idea of what geriatric services are associated. So we basically look into aged care facilities over here. So we do not have aged care facilities. We might have, we might not have. I'm not very sure in India, but In Australia, it's very much common. We've got aged cares, nursing homes where elderlies are then, sent across to look after, because obviously not everybody has got the privilege to keep their parents at home like we do in India. So we get more opportunity to, sort of associate with the elderly people. So when the elderlies are there in the aged care sector, which is predominantly gerontology sector, we sort of look at their assessments, we look at the treatments, and we look at the rehabilitation part as a physio. We do not work single-handedly. So in Australia, we have like physios, OTs, doctors, and all these people, they all come under one branch called as Allied Health. And we all service for the elderlies, for the residents who are into aged care, who are in community, who are in hospitals, which I will obviously put some more light on when I go forward with my slides, which you can also see on your screens. So with the assessment, we sort of look at the residents' medical history, past medical histories and things like that. Then what sort of a treatment would they require? What sort of rehab would they require? Is all covered under that area. Then we also look into the clinical advice given by the doctors, the GP, in regards to their physical ability, regards to their cognitive impairments. We also have something called as dementia units, where we have people who have got dementia, Alzheimer's. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about what is dementia, which actually has more care. You need more care in that system, where you really need to look after, you need to take decisions for the residents, because obviously they cannot take their own decisions. They cannot sometimes understand exercises. There are a lot of other things associated with dementia. So dementia is altogether a different field as compared to what we study gerontology as. So we do not only look into the physio part, but we also look into the clinical part, the mental health of the person, the functional support needs which we can provide to the person into that home. So that is what basically is geriatric service which we actually provide. So yes, we do have to do a geriatric assessment, which is comprehensive assessment, and we look at their problems, what are their immunization status, what are the plannings we are going to do for them, what is their physical function, whether they would be good in community, whether they would be going to, a nursing home, what are their psychological functions, how's their cognition, how's their mood. It is way more than what we actually do for a person who is an adult and he comes with a musculoskeletal injury or a neurology or a cardio-based issues. So it's more like a supporting way, holistically supporting the resident or the person. So that's what is all about the geriatric or gerontology part. Okay. Now, as I said, that holistically, so when we talk about holistic approach, that includes the multidisciplinary team, which I already mentioned before, which you yourself as a physio, as an occupational therapist, pharmacist, dentists, podiatrists, psychologists, nurses, carers, doctors, palliative teams, specialists, all these teams, they work together to actually work for the residents. So we don't have only one person working for them. It is like a one-stop shop for the residents to look after them. So that is basically what they get when they are when they go into this age group of elderly, where they are having all these issues, and then we are the primary source to help them. When we talk about geriatric rehabilitation, there are a lot of principles which we look into. So basically, as I said, that multidisciplinary rehab plan is very important. So we are not looking only through the physiotherapy point of view or only from the occupational point of view. It's from different areas as well. So we have to look at the patient-centered goal setting. So after doing so for example, we have got 3 places where you can actually find elderlies mostly situated where we really need to do geriatric rehab. So for example, the hospitals, that's the biggest part. So say somebody's got COPD, somebody has got problems with their, like lungs or heart or even neurology point of view. So we have different wards for them in hospital where we call it as a geriatric ward. So you have all the elderly people over there, and then they are getting all the physios and all the treatments through that ward. And once they're out from the ward, there is something called as social worker, that social worker is it plays a very important role, because then they decide whether the person is good enough to go back to their own homes. Because as you know, here we don't have children living with their parents like we live in India. So it's exactly the same. So so they have to take a decision for them whether they will be medically better, they will be able to cope up with their problems, with their needs, whether they have to be sent back to their community, whether they can go back and live by themselves, or they would need to go to a nursing home. So that's how we come into a picture when we work in a hospital, we work in a community, and we work in aged care. So I hope so that makes sense as to what I'm trying to explain. So because geriatric rehab or gerontology in itself is such a big branch, it can be possible, because elderly will be in every area, whether it is neuro, whether it is musculoskeletal, whether it is cardiology. You will find all sorts of cases everywhere. So it's just a matter of understanding your role as a physio. What would you do if you have to see someone in a geriatric population? And that's where my interest comes into. We also have physios in emergency departments. You'll be quite surprised to know that. And they also do help elderly in that situations where they have to suddenly come down to the hospital. They have got some chest infection, or they've got something related to COPD or cardiology or neuro, and then the physios do help them. So it's an emergency ED physios, we call them. So we do have that as well in hospitals. If you don't know, I'm just trying to explain and letting you know as well. Geriatric rehabilitation, they can be provided into these different sectors, which I've already mentioned. You can also provide it in private clinics. So in India, we have a trend where we call people every now and then, every day, to come and do the exercises. Here, it's a bit different. In private sector, you do not call a person every day. It's always every week. Once in a week, twice a week, it just depends on how the person is. And you can still do the exercises with them in your gym. So the private clinics in India, people do have gyms in their private clinic. It's exactly the same here in Australia. The only thing is that we do not deal with patients every day. We do not call the same person every day for getting the treatments. They have to do the exercises. If they want one-on-one, they have to pay extra for it. So that's how we are involved in aged care, in hospitals, in community, in private setups. So that's the basic theme. If you talk about aged care physio, yes, we implement all the rehab programs for the residents. We also look after the pain management. So pain management is a part of soft tissue massages, any sort of stretches, any sorts of exercises and things like that, which will help them to manage their pain levels. So all these areas where the person requires help in terms of managing their pain, that's where the physio comes. And also we liaise with the nurses, we liaise with the doctors when we are doing the rehab programs, which I will talk about shortly in some time. We need to make sure that whatever repetitions or whatever frequency of exercises we are giving them, they have to be really accurate, because that can actually bring, that can actually cause them problems in long term as well. So we really need to make sure that, you know, they are safe. Safety is a very big thing in Australia, if you guys don't know. Safety is something which is more important than someone's health at this point of time. So you have to make sure the person is safe when he's doing the exercises. There are a lot of other factors. Falls is also a very big thing in Australia. So with falls, you need to obviously make sure that the person is not having too many falls. And if he's having the falls, what are the strategies you're going to put in place to make sure that they do not have falls further? But that also depends with the multidisciplinary team. So you can't take a decision on your own, but you can obviously give an advice and suggest. For example, here we use like sensor mats. I'm not sure if you guys are very much clear with sensor mats, but it's like you're stepping on it and then, you know, there's a call bell which beeps up and just alerts everybody that, yes, the person is out of bed. So say if it's a nursing home situation, person is resting in their own room, and you know the person has got the tendency to get up and walk around, you know, and his muscle power and the range of motion is not good enough, and they are at risk of high falls, that's when we bring all these things into. So like sensor mat, crash mats, but we need to liaise that with the registered nurses. The nurses basically look after the whole aged care look after the elderlies, and they are the direct contact between us and the doctors as well. So their role is really big as well. The nursing in India is absolutely different from the nursing here. There will be some nurses who are just liaising with doctor, but they're doing the other stuff as well. We just have the nurses to look after the residents over here and making sure they've got their medications and things like that. So that's the major part of a registered nurse. And that's where we come into picture, and then we liaise with the nurse and take a decision for helping the elderlies in the aged care settings and hospitals and community and clinics as well. So you can find some nurses working in clinics as well. Okay. So similarly, the role of the PT is same in the community. So in community, I mean to say that they can live in their own homes. Community is like, so basically in India, we have different houses. So obviously people are living in their own homes, right? But not every home will have an elderly staying in it. But here we have got homes. So these homes are at one specific area where they have homes together with each other. Like closer to each other, and they all are living in that area. So that is why it's called as community, because they have been designated an area. They've been given an area where they can live, and we know that this all part is elderly community. So that's why my reference to community is that. So as a physio, you go in, you do the exercise program, you do exactly the same assessments, which I will just talk in a minute. And then you look at the rehab programs. What are the exercises which are required? What is the strength training? What are the falls risk? And also in community setting, the major role is also played by an occupational therapist. Occupational therapists will look at all the modifications, to make their life easy in a way that if they need any modifications in their house for their safety purposes, so that they don't fall down, so that they don't have any problems, that's when the occupational therapist comes in and, they help to sort out stuff around them, around the environment, to make sure that, it is safe for them to live by themselves. So you need to have a proper assessment before you actually allow someone to live by themselves in their homes, so that they can be contacted easily. Their family knows where they are. They have a call bell, which, if they are into trouble, they can ring. All these small things which has to be looked after before they are actually settled in the community as well. So PT's role, basically, physio's role is go in, do the assessment, look at the problems and do the exercises with them and make sure that they are as mobile, as independent as possible. So that's the major thing. When we look at the assessment part, we obviously look into their physical health. So what are the conditions which can actually impact their mobility, impact their exercise tolerance, impact their endurance? So all those things which can actually cause problems, those are the physical health related issues which we look into. We also look into mental health. So for example, if somebody's got depression, somebody's got dementia, or somebody's got really poor cognition who cannot even understand a word or can't follow a word, I don't think so that person would be eligible to be staying by themselves in the community or by themselves in their homes. And that's where we have to take a decision to send them to a nursing home, because the family cannot take the responsibility and they cannot live on their own. So there has to be some way where they can be looked after, and that's where the nursing home or the aged care comes in. Then we also have to look at the functional levels. So functional levels can be related to your activities of daily living, their range of motion, their strength, which is very much important, their balance, which is another thing which obviously is closely related to falls. So that is something which we really need to look into. Then if they have any medical issues like high blood pressure and things like that, are they able to manage themselves, or they will require further, investigations and things like that? So yeah, we need to know the functional status of the person properly before we actually make them eligible to be able to live on their own. Socially, yes, we have to look into the family. Will there be somebody coming to see them every now and then? Would there somebody, like if they have a family, the family will visit them in their homes. If they don't have anyone, then we have someone they can hire, and then they can, those people can come in and do some social activities with them at home so that they don't get bored. So, and they are looked after well as well. So some people do not have their families here, and so they have to hire people from outside so that they can, sort of come down and help them do their daily things like cleaning, cooking, or whatever. So all those stuff that has to be looked after as well. Environmental, I've already shed some light on that, where the OT comes into. So obviously false risk, poor lighting, and all these things like stairs in the front or the back. How many times are they able to go out? What are the issues related to that? So all these environmental fixations are basically done by the occupational therapists. Now, with the assessment, you will obviously be more inclined towards the outcome measures. So we look into a lot of outcome measures. I do understand that everybody knows what outcome measures are. So you need to use the appropriate outcome measures in gerontology depending upon tuck tests, like for example, balance tests. So you can do tuck tests, you can do 6-minute walk tests and things like that. You can do some, the Berg's balance scale. So that's also one of the outcome measures which can be used. Then you can use all the other outcome measures which are related to cardio, neuro, and your musculoskeletal. So all these outcome measures will help you determine that how much beneficial your treatment has been since the time you had started. So that gives you a bit of an idea. So that's what outcome measures are for. So yeah, you have to use that as a thing to justify that, yes, the physiotherapy is actually beneficial for this person, and that's the reason why you would like to continue. So you need to show that improvement as well. And then of course, you need to liaise with multidisciplinary team if you have any issues. The people who live in community, the elderlies, those who live in community, they are funded by the government over here. There's nothing which they have to give out of their pocket, but they are on a level of funding where they will provide you some amount of money so that they can source a physio and in home, they can source a nurse coming home, they can source a care staff coming home. So all these people who are involved in looking after the elderly are basically under the multidisciplinary team. So basically it's done by the government, to be honest. So yeah, so that's the main thing about community. With hospitals, it's very much straightforward. If they are not well, they go into nursing home. If they are okay to go and they've just got, just a problem with their lungs or anything, and they're recovered afterwards, they can live by themselves, they go back to their homes with no issues at all. Now, what is the role as a physio? As I said, that physiotherapists can involve in areas like functional status, activities of daily living, how is their gait, their speed, falls, balance, and overall, you look after the whole client. So example, if you are doing someone's assessment and you found something related, not directly related to your physio branch, but it can be a medical issue which you have just spotted. So you can actually liaise with the doctor, you formally write a letter, and that goes forward, and then they can come in and have a look at the person. So we should, as a physio, we should be able to sort of determine what problems the person is facing and who you should be contacting just in case there is a problem. So that is how the physio's basic role is in all together as a gerontology physio or geriatric physio. So this is what we really do, is look after all these criteria. Yeah. So we also have geriatric physiotherapy referral. So when would a physio get a referral from the person or from the community, or say from the aged care nursing home and things like that? When they have a recent fall or they have a lot of history of falls. So why they are having a lot of falls, what is the reason? A physio can investigate that basically because of, we do a lot of assessments, we know the strength, how to measure the strength, range of motion and things like that. Also, when we do the assessments or say the strength and range of motion, especially the strength, we always do the group muscles over here. We do not do individual muscles here. Like even in your exam, if you are going to sit for the Australian physiotherapy exams, we do not do individual muscle testing, and unless and otherwise required. But it's mostly group testing. So just so that everybody knows that it's always group testing here. So yeah, it's easy to do the strength testing then. Range of motion exercise, range of motion, yes, normal. We use goniometers if required, but if you are very good with your visual range of motion and you know what you are measuring and you know the normal ranges of the joints, then you don't really need to use any goniometer. With loss of mobility, somebody has drastically decreased their mobility and they would require any assistive devices. So in aged care, we have a lot of care plans. Now, for example, if somebody is living in a nursing home and you as a physio go in and you've never seen that person, how would you know someone's mobility? So to know the mobility, you have the care plans done by the physios, on-site physios, and they prepare the whole plan for the person. So that includes your mobility, they will explain how is the mobility of the person, if they require any assistive device, what are the factors which are limiting or impacting their mobility, what are the problems with their balance, what is the problems with their exercise tolerance, how much can they walk, how many people do they need to help so that they can walk that distance. So all these things are looked after by the physios and the OTs. So yeah, and obviously how much is the pain levels of the person, which is very much important. And then when you provide any pain management to the person or to the elderly, they always go, like physios always go back and review them after 3 months or after 6 months to just see if the treatments what they are doing is really effective or not. So that's altogether a different plan, setting up a plan for how to do for each resident. So you can say one house, one aged care might be having 100 people, 110 people, and you need to look after them. Sometimes you just have one physio to look after 110 people in a home, where you have to look at everything, their mobility, to balance, to everything, and make sure that they're safe at all times. So they can have neuro problems, they can have muscular problems, cardio problems, and based on that assessment, what you've done, you actually make their rehab plan. So for doing that, you must be thinking with the question that, okay, so if the physio is doing so much of work in an aged care, looking after so many people, who does the exercises with them? Or who gets so much of time to do that exercises? So we have some people known as physiotherapy assistants and occupational therapy assistants. So they all assist the physios and occupational therapists. So physio's job is to do an assessment, go and document it, make a rehab plan for the resident, and then they hand it over to the physio assistants, basically. So the physio assistants, they help doing all those exercises because they are trained. You need to do a course for that, which is a very general course. If you're a physio, as a physio, you want to do that work as a physio assistant, it's very easy because it's just general things about flexion, extension, all this anybody would know. So they are much more familiar with these words. If you're not from if you don't have a background of physio, then you have to do that course. So they help in doing all the exercises, and if they find that there is problem happening with any of the exercises when they're making them do with the residents, then they come back to the physio, and physio assesses them again and modify the exercises. Some facilities have physiotherapy assistants, some facilities don't have it. So if the facilities who don't have it, then the physio has to go and do it. And it's very different in hospitals. In hospitals, you do have physiotherapy assistant, but they do not, they're not a major part into everybody's exercises. The physios themselves, they do a lot of work in hospital. So it just depends on which hospital you are. Every hospital's got their own policies and procedures, so they just need to follow that. So with private sector, it's one-on-one. There are no physiotherapy assistants in private sector. Some of them do have, some don't. And physios have to do one-on-one rehab, gym programs with the elderlies if they want to come. So in private practice, you usually get TKR, THR, all these cases, or you'll get balance issues basically. So if they want to come and join some exercises where they want one-on-one time, then they can go to a private clinic, or they can actually have that in community if they're living in their own homes, but they need to pay for it. It's private. So then it's not funded by the government. It has to be funded out of your own pocket. So it all depends on where you are going and what you're doing. So they can have any issues. neuromusculocardio. It just depends after you do the assessment and see what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. Are they safe to do this exercise on their own, or are they not safe to do the exercise on their own? But all this comes with the experience. When you start working, it's very intimidating, but after a while you settle down when you know what's right and what's wrong. If they have any problems with endurance and ADLs, as I said, with ADLs, if they have any problems and equipment, then yes, occupational therapist is the go. They will come in, they do the seating assessments, they do all the other assessments which are required, cognitive, like MMSE. All these assessments, they're done by the occupational therapist. They come and help, they come and give all their ideas, what are the equipments will be required and things like that, which will help the elderly to actually, their needs are fulfilled through that. So whatever requirement they have, it has to be done by an occupational therapist for equipments. So that's a major part of a PT, and that's why you get the referrals most of the time. That this is why you need to see the resident, and this is the reason why you need to have a rehab plan so that they can be as independent as they can be. There are some examples on your screen if you can see. So these are all like important rehab outcome examples, which are drawn from the older adult participants. So for example, if somebody has got a rehabilitation outcome, like they need to recover and improve walking abilities, then what are you going to do? You're going to, you need to see all these things. You need to see, okay, whether the person can walk straight, whether the person can, walk with or without the crutches, if they can manage the stairs, maintain the relationship, so engage in social contacts. So all these things, they are just examples. Like this is the outcome of your rehab. This is what are the things you will, need to make sure the person is able to do. So, so all these, there are some goal settings, which I'm pretty sure everybody would be very familiar. So you need to, you need to speak to the resident and discuss the goals. If the resident is not able to tell their goals, then the family comes into picture. So you'll have to speak to the family. What are the things they were able to do? How were they before, previously, to be able to now, come to that level? So you can have a read in the free time when you get a chance about what are the what are the outcomes and what are the examples. When you get time, just have a read through. That will just give you a bit of an idea what I'm talking about. Okay. So as I was just mentioning about the goal setting, so we call our goals as SMART goals, and I'm pretty sure everybody would be very familiar. I'm not sure whether it's used in India, but in Australia, it's a very big thing. So SMART goals have to be really specific. You have to be really specific exactly what the older adult will do and how much would they do and when will they do. So that's very specific. Then the goal has to be measurable. Can you measure it? Can you make sure that the person reaches that standards, like working out for 30 minutes per day? So, how many times they can do that. So it has to be measurable. Then A stands for adjustable or attainable. So whether the person is able to adjust to, adjust the goals in case of there's any problems. Are they realistic? Can they actually be attainable? So for example, if I say somebody's got a fracture and I want that person to walk certain distance in 2 to 3 days, that's not achievable. That's not realistic goal. So that can be a long-term goal, because obviously we are working towards it, that we will make him walk after a fracture, but you can't make him walk right after a fracture in 2 days' time, unless, depending upon what sort of a fracture it is. If it's a very, very deep fracture, that definitely we are not going to be able to do it. But so my example, why I'm giving this example, is to make you understand that it has to be attainable. Can you achieve it? Can you achieve it in that time frame? So say if I say, all right, my goal would be, I want to walk 100 meters, but previously, before the fracture, I was not even walking 100 meters. Is that attainable? Is that achievable? So how long would that take me? You can't say it may take me like 1 month. You can say, okay, maybe it can take you 3 months. So it has to be attainable. That's the reason why you have a goal. And the last one is time-based. So T stands for time in SMART. So T stands for time. So whether you are able to set a deadline, as I mentioned, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 1 year, it all depends on this. So whenever you work around in Australia, and if you ever want to come down to Australia and do the exams, that's what they use over here, is the SMART goals. Right. So with the exercise, everybody knows that exercise prescription, I'm pretty sure everybody's aware, but for adult training and for training for elderlies, it's a bit different. You can have a look at it, but I will just read out a couple of things in it, which is the strength training program has to be 2 to 3 times a week for an elderly person, and it shouldn't be taking more than 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, it's sometimes, depending upon what your assessment says in terms of endurance, how much a person can perform, it just depends. But I would still recommend half an hour exercise is more than enough for them for 2 to 3 times a week. They can actually do 8 to 15 repetitions, depending upon how many exercises you're giving them. So always, if you are giving any exercise to an older person, make them do the repetitions and see if they're getting short of breath, if they're having any issues. If, for example, they are having problems doing 10 repetitions, reduce the repetitions, right? And keep them less rather than having to do, 15 repetitions. Two sets of 10. But are you sure the person, is that 2 sets of 10 enough for the person, or is it less for the person? It just depends on what your assessment says. So you always prescribe exercises after testing. You never prescribe it, whatever is about the book. So every person is different. You can't have a recipe and put everything at the same place. So you have to make them do the exercise, explain the exercise, and then, see if they can do that exercise safely. That's very much important. And then you always give them rest breaks in between. You don't let them do all of them together. Just take a rest break and then do it. So, yeah, and 1 to 2 sets of each exercise is more than enough for them. So have a read of this exercise prescription, which actually you can actually implement that if you are seeing any elderly in your clinic, if you have your own clinic time, or if you have your own business or whatever. Even for your placements and things like that, this can be quite handy. And if you are wanting to come to Australia, then I would suggest then you should be knowing the basics at least when you come down here. And just read about the general training considerations. What is the exact posture in seating when you're doing the weights with them? So all these things is just like a reference for you. Just have a look through it, read through it. And if any questions come up, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask me if you have any questions in the end. Okay. So yeah, there's some examples of what are the exercises you can do for the upper body and lower body. I'm pretty sure everybody is quite, must be knowing this by now, what are the things which you can do. But to be honest, you cannot train an elderly like an adult. So you will not give them any exercise which is vigorous, which can cause them muscle strains and aches, because they're really very fragile. They're really frail people. They can have fractures at a drop of a neck, a drop of a pen. You can have anything with them. So you have to be really, try to judge them with what comorbidities they're having, or, if they're having any high blood pressure issues, they got cardiac issues. So all this depends, and all this is different. That's why the prescription becomes different depending upon what issues they have been having or facing. So these are certain examples for upper body and lower body strength training for elderlies. When you get a chance, just have a look. You can also Google that exercises on YouTube if you like, and you can see how it is done. Stretching, yes, very, very important. So obviously you need to choose 4 to 6 stretches for upper body and 2 to 4 stretches for lower body. And you also make sure that if you are giving somebody a stretch, are they safe to do it? So upper body, yes, there can be some, some place, like some situations where you can actually, give them upper body and you feel that it is more safer than giving them lower body, because there are some stretches which need bending. Some stretches need a lot of effort to do those. So you have to be making sure that you are safe enough before you prescribe those stretches to them. Stretches can be performed at least 2 to 3 times per week, and they have to be, should be repeated 3 to 4 times each day. You can ask them to hold it for 15 to 30 seconds. 30 seconds, very ideal, but 15 seconds, if they're not able to hold more than that, depending upon the strength they have, yes, that will be more than enough as well. So yes, so there are some upper body stretches which you can actually go through. I've written some of them here. For lower body, I've written some there. So you can have a look at it, depending upon how much mobility the person has, how much endurance the person has, how much strength the person has, how much range of motion the person has. All the stretches and all the exercises will get different depending upon their status. Then we come to balance. Actually, I've not mentioned the balance thing on the slide, but this is general guideline for performing balance training for the residents or for the older people. So most of the balance exercises can be done anywhere, but you need to make sure how their balance is first of all before giving them any exercises, right? So make sure that you are performing those exercises in a very safe area. You're making sure that they are safe at all times, making sure that they are, having proper shoes, all small things, you need to make sure that they're doing everything correctly. Sometimes balance exercises have to be performed with the person standing next to them, because obviously they have the tendency to fall, especially when you're training higher balance, where you have blocking the vision, and making the person do all the Berg balance, part of Berg balance tests and stuff. So you need to make sure that they are safe enough and they are able to do it. So yeah, 2 times per week, with each exercise lasting for 10 to 15 seconds. And even 5 balance specific exercises, you can just give them, and that's more than enough. And even if they do like 2 to 3 times a week, that's more than enough for them. So just make sure that they lose balance really quickly, elderlies, because they're very nervous. They probably must have not done those exercises previously and things like that. So, and other medical conditions. Some people have vertigo, some people have dizziness, some people have high blood pressure, some people have low blood pressure. They can lose their consciousness. They can have blackouts. And it has happened in the past with me as well. I've got a couple of residents who've actually fainted right in front of me doing exercises. So you don't have to get stressed out when all these things happen. You have to be very, skilled to be able to tackle that situation. Thankfully, nobody has ever had a cardiac arrest or, not died or anything. So as far as they're not dying and they're safe, you're more than happy to do the exercises in a safe environment for them. So, and always make sure that when you're having some elderly with you and you're not very sure about how will they go, always keep a cell phone near yourself, just in case you need to call someone in emergency due to certain reasons. So we do think that nothing happens to elderlies, but when it happens, it just happens quickly and you don't even realize it and you're already in a problem. So especially in Australia, I'm not sure about India, but yes, in Australia, it's a very big thing. So if you are planning to come and practice here in Australia, please be very aware about the safety. Safety is the most important thing than anything else in Australia. So if you are thinking to come and work here, yes, please be very thorough with your safety procedures. All right. These are certain links for the geriatric rehab, which I have attached in the slide. This basically stay on your feet, which is the second resource. It is very, very beneficial, useful side. So it will tell you how to use the FRAT tool. So FRAT is functional assessment tool, which we use for the geriatrics, the elderly population, to know how risky are they in terms of the falls. They can be low risk, high risk, medium risk. So you can go through this site. This is really good site if you're wanting to come and work in Australia sometime, or maybe if you're working with elderly in India, you can actually use those exercises for them. So that's a good tool. FRAT tool is also very good. It's functional risk assessment. So it tells you if the person is, high risk fall or low risk fall, and what are the strategies you can actually implement for them. And the first one is your rehabilitation exercises for the elderly. There's some examples I had already put in the slides, but if you want to go and see in details the rehab exercises, then you can actually go on that link. This is South Australia Health Department's site, where you can actually have a look at it, and you have got all the exercises there for elderly. So if you are planning to create a program for elderly in India, I would suggest you to go and see that link. It's really, really useful. Okay, that's enough of speaking for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. And that's just the picture of Perth, my Western Australia.
Students, if you have any questions, you can ask in the chat box.
If anybody has got any questions, please let me know. I think nobody has got any questions. Nope. Okay, I think, sir, nobody has any questions at the moment.
Okay, if anybody has any questions regarding moving to Australia or about license exam, in future you can contact Madam, and Madam will be providing her email ID also, so that you can contact by email. Thank you so much, Madam, for the session. It got a quite fruitful insight about Australian PT and regulations for geriatric PT.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Madam. Once again, on behalf of JG.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Okay. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye. You too. Thanks. Bye.